halls of West Virginia resound with the sound of Gold and Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 15, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tavon Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels feared to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride.
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Gold and Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season.
And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Gold and Blue.
And now recorded from the CRW studios in Almost Heaven, West Virginia, it's the Country Roads Webcast with your host, Jordan Cruz.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the CRW podcast here. Season 8, episode 231, as we get set to preview the game against Utah. It's our Utah preview and predictions episode here on the Country Roads Webcast. And you may notice I'm rocking the baby blue. Had to break out my Carolina Panthers hoodie. Got the throwback helmet front and center because it's that week. West Virginia's breaking out the 1965 throwbacks as they welcome in Utah here in the 5th game of the 2025 season. West Virginia comes into this one 2-2 overall, 0-1 in the conference. Utah also 0-1 in the Big 12 Conference, 3-1 overall. Of course, this game will be September 27th, 3:30 kick on Fox. Utah currently favored by 13.5, despite WVU playing at home here at the time of our recording. We're going to get into the matchups. We're going to give you a brief overview of the game. And, of course, towards the tail end, we'll get our key to victory score predictions, and we'll take a look around the Big 12, make some picks for the Week 5 slate. But joining me to help do all of that, of course, is my great co-host. Got Steven in the building, a.k.a. Mike Honcho himself. What's happening, Steven?
What's going on, man? What's going on, everybody? I don't know if anybody from the channel member side has joined in on the live side yet. Good to be with you guys on this show. I mean, that's the best part about being a Mountaineer fan right now, other than what's actually happening within the football team.
Yeah, it's not the best time right now as far as, not only coming off a loss, but the injury bug has really hit us in a big bad way here early part of the season. We could have used, one of those early bye weeks. We'll have to play, a couple more games or so before we get there. And one of those, of course, is the part of our, what I'm going to call the West Coast swing, right? We play Utah at home, then go play BYU on the road. So let's go ahead and title it that here, just for funsies on this one. But as far as West Virginia and Utah, not a long standing history between these two teams. Definitely the first game since ever being conference members. Utah came in last year. West Virginia didn't play them. But in the brief series history, not the greatest success for West Virginia. 0-2. First meeting coming all the way back in 1964, and that was played in Atlantic City in New Jersey. So this will be the first time Utah ever makes the trek to Morgantown. That's one thing to note. But Steven, that was the first meeting back in 1964. Pop quiz. Do you remember the other time we played Utah? Is fairly recently.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I do know that we lost.
Yep. Bowl game. 2017.
That's right.
That's the year that towards the end of the year, Will Greer got hurt. And so then we went into that bowl game without Will Greer. Chris Chugginoff played at quarterback, went like 9 of 28. But mainly all we did was run Wildcat with Kennedy McCoy in that game, ended up losing 30-14. So, our series history with Utah, not the best. 0-2, one being a bowl game, one game played in Atlantic City. But in this one, we welcome him into Morgantown for the first time ever. So maybe that'll give us a little bit more of a brighter side. And also, hopefully, the crowd will be into it. They're handing out the baby blue, rally towels for the 1965 throwback. So, a lot of fun stuff going on surrounding the game. Hopefully, that helps the atmosphere.
As soon as I seen that, I was like, "Oh, I'm grabbing 20. I'm grabbing 20 of them. I don't
Yeah, I
care."
was about to say, I sent you the picture when WV
Listen,
sent out the tweet talking about the rally towels, and you was like, "Oh, I got to get 20 of those."
oh, I definitely do, 'cause you think I get excited about these? I grabbed enough of these. I've got, like, I don't know how many of these daggone things. Some of these I use for just regular towels just 'cause I got so many of them, but
Yeah,
I
the
keep
golden
them.
blue ones. I got a few too. Yeah,
Don't
the
ask
blue
me
ones though,
why.
they look sweet, man. The baby blue with the throwback
I
logo
will
on it. I like it a lot.
don't ask me why I have so many. I just like them.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you a bit, man. Not at all. Of course, Utah. Just continuing that brief overview before we get into kind of the matchups on each side of the ball here. They are definitely favored to win, as we talked about spread wise at the time of this recording. Of course, this could change a good bit. We are recording this a little bit earlier in the week than we usually do, but Utah currently favored by 13.5. And if you look on the ESPN FPI predictor, they give Utah over a 70% chance to win the game. Of course, Utah led by head coach Kyle Whittingham, now in his 21st season there at Utah, and had a lot of success there over his time there, and that's continued this year. They're coming off a loss to Texas Tech, which we know Texas Tech is a really good team. Other than that, though, they've already won 3 games this season. Those wins came over UCLA, a 43-10 win over a Big Ten team. Then they beat Cal Poly 63-9 and Wyoming 31-6 before losing to Texas Tech last week in a game in which they were in up until the fourth quarter. So following that brief overview, Stephen, any opening thoughts before we get into, breaking down the matchups on each side of the ball, going into this game? First time West Virginia welcomes Utah into Morgantown. Mountaineers looking to hopefully get on the winning side in Big 12 play here. First Big 12 home game of the 2025 season. First Big 12 home game for Rich Rod, breaking out the throwback uniforms. A lot of fun stuff surrounding the game, but how are you feeling going into it as far as how these two teams match up? Just kind of brief overview.
Um, overall, I don't feel confident. Really in the entire matchup. I think that our defense should be able to do well early, but I'm not confident that they're going to be able to sustain um, anything going into the latter part of the game. Offensively, I'm not really confident either, just because of the injury situation, along what was an already depleted running back room. Um, now a depleted offensive line, which again wasn't that successful to begin with. To add on top of that, I think that Utah is going to be eager to come out here and get a W because of what happened last week against Texas Tech. Because I don't think that score was reflective of the way that game went, because Utah played a lot better of a game than what 34-10 reflects. So I would imagine that for Kyle Whittingham being in his 21st season, which is insane to think of. I didn't realize that. He's going to be able to know how to get his guys ready to go in a road environment, which is another part of this equation that I don't really feel confident in. How much? Not that I don't think the Mountaineer Nation won't show up; they always show up. But how much do they show up? With the way
Yeah.
that last week turned out, I don't expect this environment to be nearly as raucous as what it was 2 weeks ago. And I don't think you were going to get that even if you did win this past weekend, just because it was the brawl 2 weeks ago. But even still, a lot of factors play into it that just do not make me confident for West Virginia, unfortunately.
I understand that 100%. And, that's why I'm hoping, some of the extenuating circumstances surrounding the game that I mentioned there and the opening, the throwback uniforms and such. I think some of that hopefully will draw people in. I know, me and you will be there as we always
Oh
are
yeah.
for pretty much every home game. So, I think hopefully others follow suit, and definitely, as you said, it won't compare to that crowd, for the backyard brawl, as we talked about that being an all timer. But if we can get enough in there and get it going and keep the game close long enough to give us a little bit of an edge, I think we'll take that, because, we'll take all we can get at this point. As you mentioned, the injuries being the main concern heading into this one. I think that's a great point that you made there. And I'm going to pull this up here because we heard about it, a little bit on Coach Rod's radio show, but then even more so in his press conference the day that we're recording this. And Chris Anderson from 247 Sports summed it up great here to recap the Rich Rod Rodriguez injury report. WVU starting quarterback top 3 running backs, 2 of the top 4 receivers, 3 starting offensive linemen, and co-starting tight end are all hurt. So, an offense that's already struggling, just kind of when it rains, it pours type scenario there, unfortunately, for the Mountaineers on that side of the ball. So definitely 100% agree with you when you talk about the injury concerns as far as, a brief overview for this game. That's definitely something that's key for West Virginia heading into this game. Who steps up at those positions, who's healthy, who's not, just stuff that we're keeping an eye on heading into this one. And we'll get into more of that, I'm sure, as we continue to break down this game, which let's dive in a little bit on that now, Steven. Let's talk about each side of the ball. Let's kick it off. Let's talk about when Utah has the ball here. Let's talk a little bit about the Utah offense versus the West Virginia defense, because I think obviously for West Virginia, that's the one thing that we've been able to point to as, not great, but at least good, and something that can keep us in games is the defense here that's led by Zach Alley. West Virginia got what they paid for. He's been worth every penny, and hopefully that's the case yet again. We talked about the home field crowd providing us an advantage, but hopefully the defense does enough to keep us in the game, and then the offense maybe can find a way to make some plays. We'll talk about more of that when we get to that side. But as far as what that Zach Alley defense is matched up against, of course, we're talking about a Utah offense that's greatly improved. It seems like this year, Utah, throughout Kyle Whittingham's history, vastly known to being physical, being known as being very good on the defensive side of the football. But now it seems like they're trying to pair an explosive offense with that. They went out and found, an offensive coordinator in Jason Beck coming over from New Mexico here in his first season at Utah. And when he was there at New Mexico, they were super explosive. They led the Mountain West in multiple categories. The Mountain West, probably one of the very best group of 6 conferences there. And they led them in red zone offense and in total offense. And if that doesn't impress you enough, how about the fact that they were 4th in the nation in yards per game at New Mexico last year with nearly 485 yards per game? And by the way, who does he bring with him? His quarterback from New Mexico, and he's been explosive thus far here in his debut at Utah, and that's Devin Dampier, someone to keep an eye on. Yet again, I think he's pretty comparable to Jalen Daniels, to be honest with you, with the way he can hurt you with his legs and also be a very good passer. Thus far this season, he showcased that 71% completion rating, 7 TDs versus 2 interceptions. And also he leads the team in rushing, 225 yards and 1 touchdown. When he does throw the football, the 2 main targets to keep an eye on are wide receiver Ryan Davis. He wears number 9, 29 receptions on the year, 241 yards and a touchdown. And then look out for tight end Dallin Bentley. He wears number 88, 17 reception, 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both of those 2 guys are the only 2 players that have 100-plus receiving yards on the season for Utah. But also, Kyle Whittingham has called this the best offensive line he's had. And we talked about his experience there, being there 20-plus years. So that's something to keep an eye on, is how good Utah could be in the trenches, both on offense and defense. But we're focusing in on that offense in this side, Stephen. They bring in Jason Beck. They bring in Devin Dampier, the combo there for New Mexico. How are you feeling about Zach Alley's defense going up against what is a revamped Utah offense here? How does this matchup compel you in this game?
Like I said, I feel good early on in the game, especially. I think that they're going to try to capitalize on what they seen last week with that, having Eddie Kelly and Jamori Robinson on each side. So I think that's going to be beneficial for West Virginia probably in the first half. But I don't know if we're going to be able to, in the second half, this offense is going to have to be able to give the defense time to rest, and I just don't feel confident in that. So later on in the game, I'm afraid that Devin Dampier is going to, have some success at least on the back end throwing the ball, because he's a dual threat quarterback. He's going to hurt us with his legs, but that's what I'm afraid of, is later in the game whenever our secondary is gassed. They're gonna be able to find some holes pretty easily, just like we've seen in the 2 losses so far this season.
Yeah, and
And
I
that's not
understand
to
that.
knock the defense. It's just, how do you keep up with that if you got no time to rest?
Yeah, and that's what makes this hard to predict, right? Because it's like you have faith in Zach Alley, the way he schemes things up, the way the defense plays, and I feel like we have, not a great defense, but at least a good defense could be very good, depending on,
I think our
what
defense
happens
is
moving
great.
forward.
It's just,
But it's just, yes, the offense, complementary football, if you want to go there, it's not existent right now this year. And, like last game, I think it was like 6 straight 3-and-out. So eventually, like you said, that defense is probably going to get gassed. And that's something you have to worry about with this team. And it's interesting because, like Steven talked about there, the defense may get gassed as the game continues. And that's the problem that has been the issue for West Virginia because, overall, our run defense has been good for the most part. I know there were some holes, but that came late in the game last week after the team was gassed and it had some tackling issues. But when you look at coverage grades, I mean, West Virginia's held up pretty well. As I share this from Cam Miller, the highest graded Big 12 quarterbacks this year, you see Michael Coates right there just outside the top 5, 87.2 grade. Phenomenal grade there, and he's been near the top of our defensive grades videos that we put out for channel members. And I think that it's interesting that West Virginia's secondary is the best that they've had in maybe the history since they've been in the Big 12, definitely the best they've had in probably close to a decade. And the defense is one of the best they've had in several years as well. But despite that, you're not really having great success because that defense, like Steven talked about there, is getting gas later in the games because your offense isn't performing well. So, we can feel as good as we want to about this matchup with West Virginia's defense versus Utah's offense, but it's really dependent on the other side of the ball, which we'll get to momentarily, is if West Virginia's offense can sustain drives to give these guys a little bit of a breather as injuries, unfortunately, have piled up on both sides. The defense dealing with some injuries a little bit as well. We'll see what happens there. I know Darian Lewis went down. Hopefully he's ready to go. Chase Wilson seems like he's back. Fred Perry will be back despite, missing most of the last game. So, not as many injuries on the defensive side, but like Steven talked about, later in games, they've just been getting gassed because the offense's lack of success. So, when I look at it on paper, honestly, I like the way that this matches up because as we talked about there, West Virginia secondary greatly improved. Coates has been great. Chambers has held up. And Scruggs has been in there. He's been good. The corners are much better. The safeties are much better. You have a really good front seven, but it's just the issue of getting gassed later in the games. And I think when we talked about Utah's offense, they don't really have any standouts in the run game besides Devin Dampier making plays with his legs. And fingers crossed, I pray to the good Lord above that we've learned our lessons when it comes to, maintaining a better pass rush when we had, scrambling quarterbacks at Ohio and Kansas that hurt us because we'd get in there and have, stuff schemed up by Zach Alley, but we'd come in there, not under control when they break contain and then make plays with their legs. So hopefully we've learned our lessons in that aspect. So I like the way that we match up. I think we can hold their run game, and I like the way our secondary matches up as far as their passing offense and how our corners have improved. But the issue is, like Steven talked about, can our offense do enough to keep us from getting gassed? I think that's what we got to look at here when we talk about that side of the ball. So that leads us and is a great segue into that side, Steven. Let's talk about that because I think that is the key in this game is when West Virginia has the ball, can they do enough to sustain some drives, give that defense a breather because that defense will keep you in it, but can you score? Can you keep it close enough to make some plays late in the game, much like West Virginia did in the backyard brawl? And, they tried to keep it close against Kansas for 2 or 3 quarters, but couldn't do enough. So it's up to the offense. Can they do enough? And when West Virginia's offense is matched up against this Utah defense, we talked about the injury bug hitting. Nico Marchiol status up in the air. I don't think he'll start. Questionable as if he'll play. Ty Edwards at least questionable, maybe doubtful. Sincere Bowers probably doubtful. You still got the injuries at receiver with Jaden Bray out for the season, Jaheim White out for the season. Landon Livingston probably won't play in this game. So the injury bugs hit West Virginia. And they're going up against a Utah team that prides himself on defense. And we talked about how long Kyle Whittingham's been there. Also, the defensive coordinator. He's been there a long time as well in Morgan Scalley. It's his 18th year there at Utah, and he has an identity, which he calls the RSNB defense, Steven. And that is, of course, smart, nasty, ball hawks, and relentless. That's your RNSB defense that Utah likes to employ there. And they finished in the top half of their conference at 8 of the past 9 years. A lot of standout players in this defense, but none more so. The main name that you got to know on this Utah defense is John Henry Daly, the edge rusher there, 89 defensive
John
grade and
Daly.
John Henry Daly. John Henry.
John
Steven.
Daly plays for them.
John Daly, but not only John Daly, John Henry. I mean, what a name. All-timer name.
Yeah. John Henry, isn't he the one that beat the machine, right?
Yeah. He beat the machine, and then John Daly. I mean, you got to love John Daly, the golfer, as well. So what a name. John Henry Daly. And he performs like a superstar, man. 89 defensive grade, 92 pass rush grades, which are both extremely high. And he has 6 sacks in 4 games. And if that's not impressive enough, how about 20 quarterback pressures in 4 games, Stephen, from John Henry Daly? So that's concerning with our offensive line issues right there alone, just that one man.
That is
And
concerning.
Utah pride themselves on defense, So definitely keep an eye on John Henry Daly for the Utah Utes. And we like to provide a player at each level. That's the player on the first level. You go to the next level with the linebacking core. I think that you're looking at Jonathan Hazel, 19 tackles, an interception, and 10 stops in 4 games. If you look at PFF stats, which John Henry Daly himself has 13 stops. And then in the defensive backfield, it's Jackson Benny, 3 interceptions, 3 pass deflections, and one of those being a pick 6 in 4 games. So, Stephen, a lot of standouts on the Utah defense, and they have a system that's in place. We talked about Whittingham, and of course, Scalley's been there nearly as long as well, and defense has been kind of their calling card throughout that time. They showcased that through 3 quarters against Texas Tech and through 3 or 4 games this season, maybe 3 games and 3 quarters, if you want to look at that game against Texas Tech. And the pass rush, definitely concerning with West Virginia's offensive line issues. West Virginia not exactly healthy. Quarterback's a concern. Who are we going to start there? Running back's a concern. Who are we going to start there? And dealing with the tough Utah defense. I think just, looking at it as an overview, Utah definitely has an advantage here. But do you think West Virginia can match up and find a way to move the ball and score some points in this game?
Do I think they can? Yes. Do I feel confident on who can do that? No. The one player on offense that I feel confident that could find exploitation in that defense is Cam Vaughn right now. But that's just because we've seen, spots of greatness from him already. But it largely depends again, what pieces we can find along that offensive line. Like Carson Lee. Carson Lee came in, I think, filled the void of losing Landon Livingston pretty well. I thought Landon Livingston was one of the only bright spots along that offensive line. But it'll be dependent on who takes Tykeus Crawford and who was the other one? Nick Cray?
Chemo
Yeah.
McAnally.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're questionable as well.
Yeah.
Got to throw that up there. The right guard and right tackle. Which the right side of the line, as we talked about, has been an issue anyways. But both those guys, questionable also.
Yeah. It really depends largely on who replaces those guys and if they can do a better job of what those guys were doing. Because in all honesty, I don't think that they were doing a very good job at all. And I pointed that out several times. And it wasn't just simple things, or it was simple things. I mean, and that's what was frustrating about it. So I think that we can have success. I think it will largely depend on the offensive line, but I think it also will largely depend on who we put back there behind center. Will it be Jalen? Will it be Scotty? Will it be Khalil? I don't really know who would be the best option right now. And then again, the question marks around Nico's injury, even with what I said last night on the podcast about maybe having to switch just to fit the scheme a little bit better with the situation that we have. There's question marks there. I mean, how long is he going to be out? What kind of injury is it? Past that, other larger question marks remain. But anyway, yeah. I don't feel confident, but I do feel like it's possible.
I mean, you can never rule out what Rich Rod could potentially scheme up, but I think, as you mentioned there, that's the positions we're keeping an eye on. Not only, running back, because it definitely questionable at best that Ty Edwards may be able to go. Does Clay Ash start there? Sincere Bowers obviously is in concussion protocol. Don't expect him to play. So, you're probably looking at, if Ty Edwards doesn't go, you're looking at Clay Ash, Tyler Jacklich, Dior Hubbard, maybe that's probably about it. You're looking at the running back position, but quarterback. I think I'm glad you mentioned that because it's a great segue. Because I wanted to ask you who you thought would get the go this week on our snap counts and player grades video that I try and do a depth chart projection within on for our channel members. Which shout out to our channel members. Appreciate you guys getting the behind the scenes access to this episode as well. And you guys are the ones that help keep this mic record and that camera rolling. And always thankful for you guys. And if you want to become one of those over on the YouTube channel, you can hit the join button down in the video description or on our YouTube channel homepage, and you get a ton of bonus content. But I also, mentioned in there that I thought, prior to learning about Nico's injury, which is a whole new issue that came out today, the day of Rich Rod's press conference, that Nico is apparently dealing with a mid-foot injury, and he wasn't even in Morgantown. He's currently in Colorado seeing a specialist, so I'm not expecting him to play. But prior to that, I predicted that I thought, Jalen Henderson would get the start. I feel that way even more so now. But, any thoughts on the prediction for the starting quarterback and, Nico's now known foot injury, which I think is interesting because we've all, in the past talked about him moving a little bit slower, now to learn that he's had a foot injury that he's apparently told the coaching staff he's been bothering for a couple of weeks or so. How are you feeling about that? And how are you feeling about the starting quarterback for the upcoming week? Because I did put out a poll on social media we'll highlight, but I want to get your thoughts on who you think will start and Nico's injury.
For the Nico's injury thing, it really makes a lot of stuff make sense on why he's been playing the way that he's been playing. Because it's just not been like himself. I mean, some of the stuff that we've seen that's been, a negative that he's played like in the last 3 or so weeks have been unlike anything we've ever seen him play like. So you knew something was up, so that makes a lot of sense. But if I had to pick, this isn't my choice. It's just who I feel like is the most likely option. It'll probably be Jalen Henderson. If I don't know, I wouldn't say that wouldn't be my choice. I guess that might also be my choice. I kind of want to see a little bit more out of Khalil Wilkins. I don't think we've seen a large sample size from him yet, as compared to what we've seen out of the other quarterbacks. And even Scotty Fox, I know that he got, in there for a little bit in the third quarter in the Pitt game, but still, I think that give him a chance to see if he's grown from that. If it, I don't know. You never know. And possibly if we're still struggling, you might have to do that. But Jalen would be my guess.
Whatever will give you a spark. But I agree. That's who I went with, was Jalen as well. And as it stands now, which this can change by the time, of course, we get done recording. But the poll I put out on social media, I asked with Nico Markel's reported injury, who should start at quarterback for WVU on Saturday if he's unable to go. And 53% of the voters said Jalen Henderson, 23% Scotty Fox, 15% Khalil Wilkins, and then 8% for Max Brown, who, of course, we have yet to see as he's come back from that hamstring injury. I still
Another
wonder
TG.
if and when we'll see him. That's somebody that, is still the wild card, I guess you could say.
I swear, he's the one that looks the most and plays the most like Garrett Green.
I think he's got one of the best arms out of the room, besides maybe Nico. He's right up there close to Nico as far as passing is concerned, and he can move a little bit as well. So I'd be interested to see what he could do if and when he's healthy.
And he's got wheels, so I mean, he might be the prototype for this offense. So, I'd agree with that. Might need to see what he's got.
You never know. Let's hit this then before we get into our key to victory and score predictions, which we're coming up with next. That'll be the next segment here on the episode. But since we're talking about it, over under 2.5 QBs on Saturday.
Over.
So you're thinking who would be the 3 then if you're going over? I'm guessing you're going at least 3. So who you think who you're going with?
The main 3. I think
Jalen, Khalil, Scotty, or you think Max Brown gets in?
I think that you see Jalen, Khalil, Scotty, and then I think there's a chance you see Max Brown.
Oh, so you're thinking maybe 4. So you're going way over.
Well, I mean, we've seen it up to this point. You've seen Nico, Jalen, Scotty, and then Khalil mixed in there. If we're struggling, especially at home, it's one thing to struggle on the road with Rich Rod, but he's not going to let you do that shit at home. He's going to throw anybody and everybody into the mix to see if we can find some kind of a spark. Sure. It don't matter if he's got to go through every single quarterback on the offense and then go through receivers and then go back to the first quarterback.
Yeah, whatever works, man, for
Yeah,
sure,
he's gonna do
100%.
what he's got to
My
do.
only
So yeah, I
thing,
think it's a good chance.
with Scotty, I'm wondering because we saw him come in against Pitt and he had a knee brace on, which he didn't have, prior to that against Robert Morris and such. So I'm wondering if he's a little banged up. But also, I believe he's played in 3 games, so he can play one more if they want to redshirt him. So I'm going to keep an eye on that and see if they
Is
want
this
to keep that redshirt and make him come back as a redshirt freshman, which the bowl game doesn't count for that. If we were to make a bowl game, that doesn't count towards that. But so, well, that's something to keep an eye on there in that situation. For me, I think I might take the under, not only to be devil's advocate, but because I feel like you said, I think Jalen's going to start, but I think if they need a spark, I think they might bring Khalil in to try and spark the run game a little bit. But other than that, I think they finally give Jalen a shot because, when we've seen Jalen come in, it's been like situationally. He's gotten, a couple series, per game, something like that. And a lot of times it's been in the second half. I want to see what he can do when he's given a full shot, like, nearly an entire game to, try and make something happen. Let's give him some chances where he can, throw the ball, run the full offense. I want to see what happens with that. So I hope they give him a fairly long leash if it is Jalen, like we're both thinking it might be here, and see what happens there. So I'm gonna go under the 2.5, but
I
very
hope
well could
I
see me
hope
being
you're
wrong.
right, but the only thing that deters me is that they didn't even do that with Nico. So why would
Yeah,
I don't know why they would turn around and do it with Jalen out of the blue.
that's a good
So
point too.
I'm just going off of what they've given us so far.
That's a good point too. And running back, I'm sure will be more by committee. Fingers crossed, Jacob Barrett could come back at tight end. We'll see. I think Carson Lee gets the start at center. The good news is Livingston's injury was not a high ankle sprain. I did hear that. It's a little bit better than they expected it to be. So I think he will come back at some point this season. I don't expect it to be in this game. I think we'll start Carson Lee. And then, like Steven said, we'll see what happens on the right side of that line. Both Chemo and Tyke East are questionable. And it was also questionable prior to them, knowing that they were injured because of the lack of success there on that side of the line. So those are the positions we're keeping an eye on. Hoping Preston Fox will be back at receiver. And like I said, running back probably be by committee. If Ty Edwards doesn't go, you're probably looking at Clay Ash starting again and then mixing in some of the others. So that's kind of some of the thoughts there on each side of the ball. Last thing I want to add before we get to key to victory and score predictions, Stephen, double fingers crossed that special teams performs better this week.
I mean, it can't be any worse.
Right. Right.
Let
Let's
me
try and
shut
kick
my
the ball
mouth.
out of the end
Let me
zone
shut my
and
mouth
let's
real quick.
yeah. Right. Let's try and make something happen there. We'll see. Rich Rod said he felt like we had a couple opportunities to block one. So maybe they'll learn from that. Maybe we'll make one happen this week. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Keep an eye on special teams as well. But there's what we feel like on the matchups on each side there, which leads us into the favorite part of these episodes, the key to victory and the score prediction. Let's go key to victory first, Steven. I'll let you lead this one off. What's it going to take? West Virginia's breaking out the 1965 throwbacks. First time WVU football's ever worn a full top to bottom throwback uniform set. We've worn some throwback helmets in the past, but the first time we've ever worn a full throwback uniform set. A lot of the crowd going to be rocking baby blue. The baby blue rally towels there. A lot of changes to the offensive lineup. It seems like maybe that'll spark some things. Will that be enough? Will the crowd help? What's it going to take? What's the key to getting it done on Saturday as West Virginia welcomes Utah into Morgantown for the first time ever?
For me, it's a little bit off brand for myself to pick something like this, and it might even sound corny to some folks, but I really think it boils down to effort. I think effort is the main thing. I think you've got a lot of question marks, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where you already had too many question marks that your defense has had to come up with the answers for um, in the victories that not counting Robert Morris, I guess. But I think with the pieces that you have to find, plug and play for, I think that for those guys, I mean, it truly is just effort and staying disciplined. Um, because I truly think in this game, if you're not disciplined and if you have those silly penalties, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, i.e., Fred Perry last week, you got to be smarter and you got to have some more discipline to you, and that counts for for aggressiveness, for those types of penalties. Whether it be a targeting call or whether it be being too rough on the quarterback, or whether that be, you know, along the offensive side of the ball, you know, knowing the snap count, not having false starts at critical times, you know, things of that nature. That's what I mean by discipline. So I think that those two things, if you can have a pretty clean game and you can see the players, you know, out there really putting in a lot of effort, I think that that will pay dividends throughout the ball game for West Virginia, because not only will your defense be able to rest because of your offense, I think that will get the crowd into it later in the game, and I think that'll help West Virginia. So
Yeah.
those are my keys to victory.
I like it. I like it because I think effort is definitely a major key because, you know, already I think it was probably, you know, a slim margin for West Virginia. You had to play, no, I don't want to say perfect, but as close to perfect as possible. And now with the injuries piling up, you have to have that effort and you have to execute to be able to get a victory, man. So I think that's a great key to victory for the Mountaineers. For me, I'm going to go ahead and say my key to victory is run the football, man. We have to have some semblance of a running game to be able to move the ball, at least get some first downs, give our defense a rest. Because, like we talked about, we've got a good enough defense to keep us in this game. And if we want to, you know, stay in it, we just need to put some drives together on offense. And if we're not able to run the football, we're not going to be able to do that. I think maybe having, you know, one of the more dual threat quarterbacks in there could help that, as we saw towards the end of the last game. But, you know, in our two losses this season, that's the common denominator. We haven't been able to run the football. We couldn't run it against Ohio after Jaheim went down, and we couldn't run it against Kansas prior to Jalen Henderson and Khalil Wilkins coming in. So maybe seeing more of both those will help us. But I think we have to be able to run the football to be able to win this football game, especially considering we're playing a team that is really good in the trenches, both on the offensive line and the defensive line. We're going to need to find a way to run the football. So that's my key to victory in this one. So those are our keys. But can West Virginia execute on those and get it done is the big question. It's prediction time, Stephen. West Virginia back at home.
Yep.
That's always positive so far. You know, won every home game thus far this season. On the road's been a different story. But we're welcoming in, you know, Utah for the first time ever. They're having travel, you know, cross country. Maybe that goes in our favor, as we talked about. Maybe the throwback uniforms, the crowd loving that. Maybe that goes in our favor as well. Other than that, you know, West Virginia's kind of backs up against the wall. We talked about the injury bug. We talked about all of those things. But we are at home. We do play better when we are there. So we have that going for us. But how are you feeling about this one? Can West Virginia get their first Big 12 win in the Rich Rod 2.0 era? What's your prediction as Utah comes into Morgantown this Saturday at 3:30 in a game that'll be televised on Fox with West Virginia as a home underdog?
Yeah, I think that it's a really really good situation for West Virginia, because I think that the Utah fans, I don't think that they're brave enough to come out to Morgantown, so they're not going to have any kind of presence there. And I think that Utah, the players, are going to be disoriented because they're going to notice how into it this crowd is as compared to what their crowd is. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's really going to psych them out, and West Virginia's going to come out and they're going to blow the brakes off of them. I got them 50 to -3, 50 -3.
Let's go.
Come out near.
Let's go. I
Realistically, it's
need
like
it.
31-10 Utah, but yeah,
Hey, Steven, you're throwing them golden blue glasses on, man.
yeah, 50 -3.
If I could hand these to you through the screen, I would hand these golden blue glasses to you because you're wearing them. You're wearing them, my friend. With that prediction, which I
31-10
love,
though,
man.
Utah.
31-10 Utah is the realistic
Yeah.
prediction, and I'm not mad at you for that one, man. It's hard to see things going positively right now because what's West Virginia's problems area been? Offensive line. What's Utah's strength in the trenches, defensive line, and their offensive line as well? You know, I have faith in Zach Alley. I've said that on, you know, continuous preview show after preview show throughout this season. That'll continue to be the case. Like I said, I think West Virginia has a good defense. They'll keep us in it, but it's up to our offense to be able to execute and make this a game up until the latter portion. If they do, and they put some drives together and keep this closed until, you know, in the second half, I like our chances. I think we have a chance because I like the way our defense matches up with their offense. I think we can get some stops, but it's just our offense with all the injuries piled up, everything else, can we score? And I don't know if I feel confident enough that we can get it done. But having said that, I do think that we'll cover the spread as it stands currently. And I think West Virginia is going to keep this one closer than people expect. I think we play a lot better at home, and we've shown that thus far. I think the Zach Alley defense will perform exceptional in this game. I think they'll keep us in it. But I just think that Utah will do just enough, unfortunately, to pull away late and just eke out a win in Morgantown. But I think it'll be closer than the experts expect. But West Virginia 17, Utah 21. That's my prediction. Zach Alley's defense holds them, but West Virginia's offense can't score quite enough. Utah ekes it out 21-17 in my prediction. So, unfortunately, we both aren't feeling the best about this one. Would love to be proven wrong, but that's where we stand on it. Let us know your thoughts on the game, your thoughts on the matchup in the comments, and we'd love to get your score prediction in our live stream that'll be coming up on Thursday or Friday, where we get your thoughts on the game and your predictions after you've heard us on here on our podcast episode, which we appreciate you guys listening to on any podcast platform you choose. If you're listening there, leave us a rating. That helps out on that side of things. And those of you that watch on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. Help us out with that crazy YouTube algorithm. And be sure to subscribe to the channel to get these videos directly into your feed. And shout out to our friends over at WVSN for hosting our episodes on their website as well. So you've heard our thoughts on the West Virginia Mountaineers versus the Utah Utes for the first time ever in Morgantown, as West Virginia plays their second Big 12 game in 2025 this upcoming week, as we preview that here on episode 231. But what about the rest of the conference? Let's make some picks there, Stephen. Let's take a look around the Big 12 in week 5 and make some picks here as we take a look around the conference here. Some interesting matchups going on. We'll see how we feel about each of these as we preview the slate, as there are a couple Friday games and then a Saturday slate to get into. So let's talk about it, my friend. Starting on Friday with TCU at Arizona State. Considered making this one the game of the week, but I felt weird making a Friday game the game of the week, so I didn't do it. But it probably should be, because I think that this game is almost like a de facto conference contender elimination game, right? The Horned Frogs heading into Tempe, 9 o'clock Eastern kick on Fox on Friday, September 26th. Josh Hoover versus Sam Levitt. This one might have some fireworks. I don't know which team to pick right now, Steven, so I'm going to brew on it for a second and let you go first.
I was hoping you'd go first. I really don't know who to pick. Kind of want to go with TCU, but I'm going to go with Arizona State just because of the home team and just because they show me that they have not fallen off in terms of in competitiveness. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the Sun Devils.
Not a bad pick. This one could easily go either way. Like I said, I don't know which way to go on this one, but not only to be devil's advocate, but also because my two fantasy team quarterbacks are Devin Dampier at Utah and Josh Hoover at TCU, and I might start Josh Hoover this week. We'll see. I'm going to go ahead and pull for TCU and pick them to get this win here over Arizona State. And I think that it's the one thing that I feel pretty confident about in this game is that it's probably going to be a shootout between both these two teams, explosive offenses, and it's probably going to be a fun one to watch. So tune in on Friday night to this game between TCU and Arizona State for sure. Then also on Friday night, late kick, 10:30 Eastern, because it's in Oregon, as Houston heads out to Corvallis to take on Oregon State in a game that'll be televised on ESPN. Stephen, Houston's a little bit better than people expected. I think that Willie Fritz has built a really good defense there already, and they have a strong enough offense to win them some football games. I think Houston gets it done against Oregon State, and maybe even pretty handily. So I'm going with the Cougars. What about you?
Yeah, no arguments there. I'm doing the same thing.
Both rocking with Houston on that one, which takes us into our Saturday slate here. Cincinnati and Kansas at noon in Lawrence, and this one's on TNT and also streaming on HBO Max. West Virginia's opponent last week, the Kansas Jayhawks, welcoming in the Cincinnati Bearcats. Interesting matchup here. Can Kansas keep the momentum going? I think they will. I'm going to roll with the Jayhawks. I think they still have a chance to compete at the top of this conference. They didn't show me any signs last week of not being able to do that. And I think they're a little bit better in Cincinnati. So I'm going to roll with the Jayhawks to keep the momentum going. What about you, Stephen?
I'm going to argue that. I think Cincinnati's actually looked really, really well in the games that I've watched them play this season. I think Kansas is still riding a little bit high from the way that they played last weekend and the way that they beat West Virginia. So I'm actually going to go with the Bearcats. I think they're going to go out of Lawrence
Okay.
and get the win.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Going in with the road team with the win there in the nooner. I like it. I like it. Not too shabby. Then we have UCF coming off a big win over Chapel Bill and the UNC Tar Heels, taking on a struggling Kansas State team thus far this year, but it is in the Little Happel there in Manhattan. 12 o'clock noon kick on Fox Sports 1. Steven, I'll let you take this one first. The Golden Knights taking on the Wildcats. Who you like?
Um, I would like the Kansas State to get back on the winning track, but I just don't see it happening. With the way they've been playing, and I think that UCF has been playing pretty well as of late. So I'm going to go with the Golden Knights.
Hey, look at Steven rolling with the road teams early on in the Big 12 Week 5 pick 'em. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it, man. I think there's a chance that happens, but I also think Kansas State's a much better team than what they've played thus far this season. They're going to bounce back at some point, and why not make it here at home against UCF as they travel to Kansas State? Give me the Wildcats. Give me the Wildcats in a bounce back and get right game to finally get a win. I'm going to go with Kansas State on that one. Then we move on to a game where Steven, moment of silence. Moment of silence there for Mike Gundy. He'll be missed, man. We've talked a lot about, how we were fans of Mike Gundy. He never bet against Gundy, but unfortunately that comes to an end.
No,
Hell
he
of a
ruined
career.
it. He ruined it. I picked this man to win the Big 12 conference last year, and he didn't win a damn game. He ruined that. There's no respect left.
I'll tell you
Mr.
right
He's a
now.
man. He's
It was
63. He's not even 40 no more. He's 60-some years old.
Yeah, he's 63. He's a man. He's
What the hell's
63.
going on?
Hey, I'll tell you what, it is a bitter end, unfortunately, to what was a stellar career there in Stillwater. As just learned today, the day that we're recording this, Mike Gundy on the way out at Oklahoma State. I think their offensive coordinator, Doug Beacham's named their interim coach, so he'll be coaching them for this game as Baylor comes into Stillwater, 3:30 Eastern kick on ESPN2. No Mike Gundy, but can the Cowboys find a way to rally? Win one for the Gundy despite him being gone. Doug Meacham coming in as interim coach. Can they pull off a miracle against Baylor, Steven?
I'm going to say yes, just because I think it would be the most hilarious thing ever. Just because I think it would be so freaking hilarious if they did so. I'm picking Oklahoma State.
Okay. I can dig it. I can dig it, man. Why not? Why not for the dramatic effect, for the comedic purposes as Steven talked about there. But I think
Go
Baylor rolls
Cowboys.
them.
Cowboys by 50.
Baylor, give me Baylor by at least 2 touchdowns. I think Baylor goes into Stillwater and rolls. But hey, stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. We'll skip over. Of course, we talked about the Utes and the Mountaineers. We'll skip over the Arizona Iowa State. We're gonna make that our game of the week this week in week 5. BYU and Colorado. How about that? A nightcap, 10:15 Eastern on ESPN. The Cougars, Steven. It's a pro BYU podcast for at least one more week before we take them on, and they got to go take on Coach Prime in Colorado. How are you feeling about your beloved Cougars here on the road in week 5?
Feeling good. Feeling like they're ready to go. They're ready to play. I'm hearing good things out of the team camp, if you will. So let's go Cougars. I think they're gonna go out there and beat them by 17 plus.
Hey, I can't wait to see how you're going to come next week when we have to
What?
preview the game against BYU.
What did he say?
Let's rewind that. I can't wait to see how you're going to present yourself on the episode next week when we take on BYU. How's that?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think viewers might not like me next week.
Oh God, I don't know, man. My man's gonna show up in like BYU gear or something crazy. Just stay tuned for the BYU preview episode, guys. That's all I can say. But I will agree with you. They'll get it done. They'll handle Colorado on the road. BYU gets a win in that one, which takes us to our game of the week here in week 5 to wrap up our Around the Big 12 segment and nearly put a bow on our episode as well. The Arizona Wildcats taking on Iowa State. Iowa State near on the top 10 in the country. They're a top 15 team now. But Arizona State, I think, a little bit better than people predicted. So, can they pull the upset? Night games and Ames are crazy. That's why this one's the game of the week, just because it's a night game in Ames. That's literally the only reason why. 7 o'clock Eastern kick on ESPN, Steven. Iowa State, Arizona. Can they fend off the Wildcats and avoid the upset?
Yes, I believe so, and I think they'll do it in convincing fashion. I think that for one, Iowa State is a very good football team. Not to say that Arizona isn't. Um, I just think that Iowa State has shown me a lot more than what Arizona has shown me so far this season. And then to add on top of that, you're playing a night game in Ames, Iowa. That's often a recipe for disaster for the opposing team. So, yeah, I got Rocco Becht and the Cyclones by at least 20.
By 20?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
They
Okay.
pull away late.
Okay, I like it. I'm gonna agree with you that no drama here because I think Iowa State's gonna win as well. I think it might be a little closer than people
Remember,
expect.
you remember
I
that
think Arizona's
reaction you
decent.
had? Remember that reaction you had whenever you said that Mississippi State wasn't going to win?
Oh, you think it's gonna be that type of thing? So you think Iowa
I'm
State's
just
like
saying.
gonna win by a
Well,
lot?
I'm,
Hey,
nobody thought
bookmark this
Texas Tech
moment in
was going
case
to
they do.
beat. Thought Texas Tech was going to beat Utah by 30, 34-10 last week. That's
Yeah,
a
that's
24
true.
point difference, and that's what I mean. Like it's going to be like one of those late.
So you got Iowa
situations
State
where they
pulling
pull
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Iowa State wins, but I'll say something like 34-28. I think something along those lines is what
No,
I
you're
would
wrong. I'm
predict.
right.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Screw you, Steven. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, we're both agreement though. At least we think Iowa State will win though. So we are in agreement on the game of the week at least, despite how we did have some nice little parody though throughout our picks, and then we're on the Big 12 segment here in week 5. So we don't track those or anything. It's just for funsies here at the end of the episodes for
But if
shits
we
and
did, I
gigs,
would
if
be
you will.
right more.
If we did, I'd probably be winning, but it's okay. It's just for shits and gigs. If any subscriber wants to go back and see what the records are, feel free because I feel pretty confident that I'd be doing all right. Oh man, but with that being said, that's pretty much we had everything on our docket right there covered now. I think, Stephen. A little brief overview of the series history, which not much there, but West Virginia's hoping to get a win finally against Utah in this one, and then talked a little bit about the matchups around the Big 12. Anything that we didn't cover, anything you want to touch on here before we wrap up as we hit our final thoughts here on episode 231, our Utah preview and predictions?
We got everything that I had on my mind, brother. Just the injuries, the question marks that surround the team within that, and how can we answer the questions? How can we respond? All about responding.
Yeah. Hey, I think that's a great way to wrap it. That's what it's about, man. How can you respond? How resilient are you? That next man up mentality with the injuries piling up. At least come out, be competitive, play hard, and stay in the game, man. If you come out, play better than you did last week, that's all we're asking at this point. I think we can all kind of see and look and notice with our own eyes that we don't have the pieces necessarily to be competitive as far as like within the conference as a whole. But if you come out, play hard every game, and we're in every game, that's all we can really ask for as fans, and we'll enjoy all the moments along the way. So I think if you're a fan throughout Mountaineer Nation, my parting words would be: show up, show out, come up to this game, wear some baby blue, pull out your baby blue rally
Baby
towel,
blue.
and be loud like you were for the backyard brawl. Yeah, the baby blue, your baby blue.
Hey,
Pull
for
out your
real.
baby blue.
If you are one of those people that's out there and you're on the fence about going to the game because of one reason or another, and you're one of those people that bought season tickets, if you have tickets to this game one reason or another, and you're on the fence, go, because
Yep.
it's
You
these.
could be the difference.
You could be the
You
difference,
could
and
be the difference.
and you get a pretty cool towel. You get one.
Yeah,
You
and
get
those
one
rally
like
towels are
this,
sweet.
except it's baby blue.
Baby blue and the
pretty
old
cool.
school logo. Got this logo on it, which is pretty sweet. Which I did learn, Stephen, this week. Do you know what this blue is actually called, according to the university?
What?
Star City Bridge blue, because that's what they put that logo on there in '65 was to be the color of the Star City Bridge.
That's actually really cool. Cool
Yeah.
backstory.
Little
I've
fun fact.
always wondered that. Cruise with the knowledge, giving everybody some backstory on why we use the colors that we use, because we often have fans that just use traditional colors. And
Hey, mix it up every now and then. I like it. And we've done that what now?
first of all, our colors
4
that we
years in
use.
a row now, right? Because what was it? 4 years ago, the away country roads Then we had the home country roads, then the coal rush last year, and then now the throwback. So it seems like we're going to do something like this every year, which I think is pretty sweet.
I've had confirmation of that. I've had Ren himself tell me that they're going to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're going to try to do at least one every single year. So, yeah,
that's pretty
expect
sweet.
more in the future.
Yeah, expect more in the future and enjoy this one on Saturday, guys. We'll be there. Hope you guys are too. And if you are, be loud, be proud. Rock your baby blue or your baby blue, as we've titled it here on this episode, Rally Towel. And it's going to be a fun one, man. Hopefully West Virginia comes out on the positive end. Either way, we'll be back to recap it on our Utah review and reaction. And before that, come join us on our live stream on either Thursday or Friday. Share your prediction for the game now that you've heard ours here throughout the episode and you've heard us here babble on. But that'll pretty much do it for episode 231, our Utah preview and predictions. Talk to you guys again in the near future. Always appreciate you guys tuning in. For my co-host, Steven, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those